DAOs and institutions, what a topic, right? Why don't we kick off with a show of hands? How many people here participate in DAOs? Wow. Nice, sweet, fun crowd. I love it. How many people know what a DAO is? Amazing. All right, so two good news today. We have an incredible panel of speakers. I certainly learned quite a bit in the past few days from these two. And I think the cocktail reception is around the corner too, so. We'll do a brief round of intros and then kick off, right? I'm an attorney by training, and I've spent a considerable chunk of my professional career devising regulatory strategy and structure for protocols and open source projects, and also advising financial intermediaries and investment firms who operate in the blockchain space, and currently serve as Chief Legal Officer in the US for Bitstamp.
Hi everyone, I'm David. I am a builder, not by training. I am currently building Console.xyz, which is, think of it like Web3 Discord. And before this, I built Triller, which was a leading creator platform in the antiquated Web 2 world.
Hi everyone, thanks for attending, and thank you to CTH for putting on such an awesome event. My name's Anthony. I started my career at an activist hedge fund called Amber Capital and later went into investment banking. I'm now a partner at C Club Ventures, which is an early stage VC primarily investing in early stage DAO tooling and DAO infrastructure projects, as well as directly into DAOs themselves. We launched around 2 years ago in partnership with Seed Club, which is an accelerator for tokenized communities and DAOs. Seed Club runs a 12-week accelerator program similar to something like a YC, advising projects on tokenomics, finance, marketing, legal, kind of everything that you would imagine across the DAO gambit. C Club is also a DAO, so unlike a YC, its community of thousands of people help curate the DAOs coming through the program and actively support those in the program. C Club Ventures is our venture arm, which I run, and we're also a DAO, so we're a venture DAO. Unlike C Club Ventures, which is open to everyone here to participate in, we are curated. We have about 60 members, and we collectively source deals, due diligence deals, invest in projects, and support portfolio with those 60 members. So if anyone is a founder, specifically of something in the DAO space, would love to grab a coffee afterwards.
Thank you. So DAOs, we have currently, I think, over 4,000 of those, with market cap reaching almost 20 billion in mid of this year. What is a DAO? We have protocol DAOs, we have social DAOs, we have investment DAOs. I think everyone has their own definition of a DAO when they think of one. What do you guys think a DAO is, and why are people excited about it?
I think a DAO is really any internet native organization that has a shared bank account. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, before I answer what is a DAO, I would just touch on the reason we're asking that question, because DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Who knows what that means? I think when you ask anyone in this room, many people will give you a different answer. Some people say it's kind of something quite general, like a business or a community or a new state of being or a network state. Some people point to a very specific way of measuring what is and isn't a DAO. For me, similar to what Dave said, it's an internet native or a Web3 native organization where revenues, ownership, and governance are all on chain. And we're leaving it broad intentionally because we really believe in a new way of organizational structure.
This is interesting. When I think of DAOs, I also think of an internet native network, self-governing network. So when I think of DAOs, the key, I think, is the governance, the decentralization of the governance, and the organization being natively digital, right? What do you think DAOs are getting right so far? Have you seen, what are some interesting projects and experiments you've seen out there, and why do you think those are interesting?
I think, well, I think of some examples, like ENS DAO recently putting the vote out to the community for who might best manage their endowment is kind of a cool new experiment. And it's, in principle, really exciting. Maybe we'll see if it ultimately yields, the best endowment fund manager. But these kinds of experiments I think are cool. Orange DAO, crowdsourcing, project scouting, trying to find the next best, exciting founders and startups by pooling talent and networks from Y Combinator alums is another good example of kind of the power of the community, I would say. Gitcoin is a great example of crowdsourcing, from the community, deciding these kind of community decision-making, the community deciding who should receive grants and which projects, would be most exciting to award grants to, is another great example.
Yeah, I mean, there are tons of examples from our world, and C-Club, what we would say is successful and exciting experiments. I would preface this all to say the entire DAO landscape is extremely experimental right now, so it would be difficult to point to specific examples of sustainable success because we are really, really early. Things that I'm very excited about are on-chain revenue generation, capital formation, so getting groups of people around together and putting capital together to work towards a specific cause. Venture DAOs, for example, one example of that. For example, us at C-Car Ventures, you could point to something slightly more experimental like Constitution DAO, who collectively came together and tried to buy the US Constitution. I think there are a lot of examples of exciting things, but it's worth taking a step back and thinking about why are people excited about DAOs in the first place. And like Rika mentioned, there is this element of decentralized governance, and then with that comes decentralized ownership. So at C-Club, the original thesis was very much around the creator economy and how products that were built by Web2 organizations like Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, those organizations had lots of creators and lots of consumers, and a lot of that value that was created was extracted by the platforms themselves. And Web3 promises an environment where that value can not only be redistributed to the creators and the consumers, but also more value can be created by these hyper-engaged communities, facilitated and powered by things like ERC20 tokens and NFTs. And in doing so, those owners can be part of the governance. They can shape the direction of that product or that protocol, which for me is very exciting.
Anthony, this is interesting. So you are a venture firm that is also a DAO, right? So how one might think about investing in DAOs? How does value accrue in DAOs?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from an institutional investor perspective and generally investor perspective, you've got the opportunity to invest directly into DAOs, either via their liquid tokens or illiquid safe investments, for example. We at C-Car Ventures, we're primarily investing prior to there being a liquid token. So we're looking at something like a safe with a side letter, a safe with a token warrant. You can also invest into the DAO infrastructure projects, for example, or the DAO tooling projects, or you can invest into venture DAOs. So a VC could invest into a venture DAO and get some exposure that way. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, definitely. So I know we've talked quite a bit about investment perspective. Do you go directly into the DAO, or do you invest around infrastructure and tools around DAOs, right? And what are your views on this, David?
I think you find where the exciting builders are, and it could be in the tool side, or it could be, it could be sort of a more mission-driven DAO. But I think that is sort of a segue to maybe a challenge, which is how do you find the legitimately exciting projects? I was thinking earlier today, a couple of the panels, Trevor at one point earlier, Laura Rodriguez similarly, were talking about kind of doing something innovative, nailing some product with a great product market fit, and also being able to grow community. All of the above are very challenging. And then from the investor's perspective, like, how do I find those projects early on who have nailed all of those things? So yeah, I would think about it more in terms of on what are the new platforms where, these builder communities are collaborating, efficiently, coordinating well. It happens to be something that we at Console are really focused on, and we're not the only project that's trying to kind of improve, the ways that builder communities and communities in general can collaborate. So does that answer your question, Rika?
Yes, definitely. And I think it would be very interesting to know from what you two are seeing in this space, and to hear your thoughts on which institutions do you think would have the most impact on DAOs? Is it investment institutions, or is it some other types of institutions?
I can have a go. I do want to touch on the previous point with respect to investing. One of the reasons why people are excited about DAOs is this narrative around future of work, which is to say, as a DAO contributor, you kind of have this freelance 2.0 environment where there's the ownership economy. Joining and leaving DAOs is very seamless, onboarding, offboarding. There's a lot of people thinking about this. And if you're a graphic designer, for example, you can go and you can join 5, 10, 20 DAOs, and you can start contributing to them all overnight. So that's very exciting, and one of the reasons this works is because DAOs have this non-hierarchical, very transparent structure, and with that comes the ability to actually spin up things like sub-DAOs and working groups to build products. And from an investment standpoint, a lot of the VCs I speak with, or investors in the space I speak with, approach investing in DAOs almost like they would enterprise SaaS, where they're looking at B2B models of people building tools and infrastructure projects to sell on a kind of freemium or SaaS basis to different types of DAOs. And something we've seen at CCAR Ventures is if you invest directly into a DAO, oftentimes those DAOs will create products themselves, which will be spun off and generate, and accrue a significant amount of value. So a project that we've invested in is called Khurdayan. They are a compensation protocol for DAOs, and they came out of Yearn, which is a DeFi DAO. Another project that is actually an investor of ours and that we invested in is called Gnosis Safe. You might have heard of them, and they came out of Gnosis DAO. So I think that there's a significant reframing that Web2 VCs and other investors need to have away from the traditional kind of enterprise SaaS way of thinking. With respect to the types of institutions that might have a significant impact on the space, there's this ongoing meme about the institutions are coming, and when I think of that, I think about the major pension plans, the university endowments, private equity firms, hedge funds, etc. And what I've kind of noticed that over the last few years, most of these organizations have actually already taken a position in crypto. And in 2021 and 2022, the institutions that I've had, or I've been most notably impacted by and most excited about are the brands. They are the Nikes, the Adidases, the Budweisers, the Dolce & Gabbanas, the Tiffany's that are doing interesting things with their communities, with NFT projects, with brand loyalty programs. And I think those are the institutions that are going to have the greatest long-term impact on Web3 and on the DAO space.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you think DAOs have to overcome to really take off?
I'll name three maybe, see if you have some more. More efficient coordination, figuring out how to do that better. Easier onboarding, I would say, and I guess retention also, just engagement and retention. So a lot of the similar problems to kind of building any product, I would say. It's just a little bit more challenging because there's so many more people involved. So, at Console, we're trying to, first of all, let me step back for a second. A lot of these communities, these DAOs are trying to build on using Web 2 tools. So I do think that there's a great opportunity, and this is one that we're, interested in, kind of taking aim at, of building just the right Web 3 platform for DAOs and other Web 3 communities. So I think, DAOs finding kind of the right tools to coordinate, to onboard and retain would be the great opportunity.
Anthony, do you see any kind of challenges that are very specific to DAOs that are not very relevant in other types of organizations?
For sure. I think I actually spot one of our members, Dave. Shout out to Dave. He's one of our favorite members and helped us put together our legal framework. But I think this is something that I feel, and possibly Dave might feel, which is the tragedy of the commons, which is to say, as a DAO leader of CCAR Ventures, for example, I spend a lot of time providing context to our DAO members in the form of informing them about the deals we're looking at, due diligencing, sourcing, and that takes away from my ability to actually form theses and work with our portfolio projects. And you can imagine how in a much larger DAO, where it's a much smaller, much larger and less curated group, a DAO leader might spend their entire day kind of writing up notes and informing all of the members of that DAO and what's going on, and not addressing some of the main and key issues. And relevant to that point is the question of whether people or owners of a DAO actually want to contribute and participate in governance. And this is a problem that we see in regular society and also in DAOs. Another issue that we might genuinely and generally speak about is the free rider problem, which is to say most of the token owners and holders aren't actually participating in anything going on in the DAO's day-to-day operations, and they're merely financial participants in the network, and it really skews the direction of the DAO in a non-effective, non-representative direction.
So a good incentive system would...
For sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Is lacking. Very interesting. All right, well, on my side, from what I'm seeing, is certainly some legal and regulatory uncertainty around DAOs, but I think mainly, and this is a rather, we're on the same page, this is a very experimental space, right? So you see different projects taking different shapes and trying to maybe adopt the existing structures or invent something new. But one of the main challenges I see in this space is ability to coordinate and deliberate and coordinate and come at a decision in a very effective and efficient manner. And I think once we solve that issue, it's really, sky's the limit for DAOs. So I know we're out of time. Very quickly, what are you personally excited about when we talk about DAOs?
I always go first.
I would say it's a combination of a future of work and extremely scalable organizations. The narrative that we speak about at CCAR Ventures is, everything might become a DAO one day. A university might become a DAO. Your Amazons, your Facebooks, all of these things might become DAOs, and ultimately we might become the owners and the participants in the governance of those systems, and we can actually shape the direction of the products we use, the organizations we engage with, and we can be participants in those networks rather than be the creators of the value, but not the participants and the beneficiaries of the upside of that value.
I'd say what I'm most excited about is co-creating the future of DAOs and communities, like alongside DAOs and communities. I think that that's a really exciting, space that Console, is kind of squarely in, and working with other projects that are supporting DAOs is super exciting to me.
All right.
Thanks, Rika.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.